Today, a video looking at the top books of DC from 1995. A lot of these will surprise you. Up next on Bronzeville Comics. Hey comic book community, this is Jim from Bronzeville Comics, and today we're going to be looking at the DC top books from 1995. And this is a very interesting list. Of the top 10 books, not a single one of the top 10 is from the main DC universe in 1995. No Justice League, Superman, Batman, none of the books in continuity made the list. There are a couple on the honorable mention, but most of these are other properties. One of the interesting things about this list is all of these books in the top 8 are all related to TV properties, at least in terms of their popularity. They've either been adapted to or were adapted from TV shows. And numbers 9 and 10 are going to soon be adapted to a TV show, but let's start with number 10, and that's Sandman number 70. That is a book that has sold for $104 in a CGC 9.8, and it's a book that you could probably get for around $5 raw. There's no particular significance to this, and every once in a while you'll see these $100 plus sales of just run books for Sandman. And I think that's, I've mentioned this before, I think that's because people who are collectors of Sandman might want 9.8s, might want a collection of 9.8s. I'm sure there are a handful of people out there that are looking for these books. So the most recent sale of a 9.8 for Sandman number 70 was $99 back in February, the high of $120. Two sales in May and in March of 2020. Now again, this is a property. Sandman is coming to a Netflix series. The stories from this era, 69 and around number 70, probably won't be adapted unless the show goes several seasons. So we'll see what happens there. Number 9 on the list is another Sandman issue. Once again, no particular significance to this is issue 66, which has had an average CGC sale of $120 at a 9.8, and again is about a $4 raw book. This year there were two 9.8 sales, $115 in June and $129 in February. Number 8 on our list is Preacher number 3. This is a book that sold for $125 in a CGC 9.8, and raw could probably be got for about $15 or $20, $10 or $15. The most recent sale was $100 in September, and there was an accepted offer in September with a listing of $166. So the seller was asking for $166. Somebody offered something lower than that. They accepted that offer. Preacher was, we'll get more into Preacher later on because this is number 3 on the list. Again, this book is not a book that has particular significance. There's no key status to issue number 3, but it does have, it's part of DC's Vertigo line in the 90s for the more adult-themed stories. Moving up to number 7 on the list, we're going to go from adult-themed to kid-themed, and that's Batman and Robin Adventures number 1. The first of an ongoing title after the cancellation of the Batman Adventures comic book. And this book has gone for about $150 in a CGC 9.8 and probably can get for about $5 or $10 raw sale. There was a $150 sale in August, a $100 sale in July of 2018, and a $95 sale in October of 17. So it's not a book that's been sold very often in a CGC 9.8. The Batman Adventures, which was based on the animated series, came to an end with issue 36. So then this run started, Batman and Robin Adventures, which was continuation of the same kinds of stories using that character design from the animated series. And again, these were books that were aimed at kids, so they are more difficult to find in higher grade. And the kids who enjoyed the cartoon and the books back in the 90s are now adults with disposable income who might be more apt to collect this. Number 6 on the list is a surprise to me. It's Tank Girl: The Odyssey number 1. It's a Vertigo line, has had an average sale of $160 in a CGC 9.8. You can get a raw copy for about $10. Now, Tank Girl was a character set in a futuristic Australia. She first premiered in the UK magazine Deadline #1 in 1988, made her American Comics debut in a series for Dark Horse in 1991, and in 1995 there was a feature film starring Laurie Petty, who was best known as Gina Davis's younger sister in A League of Their Own, the pitcher in the story. She's also played Lolly in Orange is the New Black. And so there are reports that the Tank Girl, so this was another miniseries that DC did. I think it was one of maybe 2 miniseries. They might have done more. And there have been reports that Margot Robbie's production company has optioned the rights and to do a reboot film, and that it is in development, but there's been no news on that front for 2 years. Now, there are 2 9.8 sales this year, $142 in August and $195 in June. So this is, again, not part of the DC Universe property. It's a Vertigo book of a licensed property. We move up to number 5 on the list. Batman Adventures number 28, which is a classic Harley Quinn Joker cover. It's the 4th appearance of Harley Quinn. And this goes for about $169 in a CGC 9.8. You could probably get a raw copy for $15 to $20. The most recent and the highest sale was in August of $200. Generally, the book sold in 2020 for the $100 to $125 range. Raws in the $20 to $25 range. The last 3 sold on eBay were $133.50, $83, and $117.50. This is a book in a 9.8, goes north of $100 for the most part. Harley Quinn, she's kind of been going in peaks and valleys as she's been in movie properties, and also I think the animated series, which is not a kid-friendly series, on HBO Max has increased the popularity. We go to number 4 on those. This is another book that surprised me, and it's one of the books I don't have in my collection. It's Babylon 5, number 1, which in a CGC 9.8 goes for about $120. You can probably get it for about somewhere in the $20 to $50 range for Raws. Babylon 5 was a TV show on the CW that ran for 5 seasons beginning in 1994. It was produced by J. Michael Straczynski and starred Bruce Boxleitner in the title role. DC licensed the property. The book based on the TV show ran for 11 issues. It wasn't something that I picked up, unusually, because most of these DC books I bought. But I tended to buy the vast majority of the DC books that were in DC continuity. The most recent 9.8 was $136.50 in May. There was a high of $180 in March. Now, that being said, there have been recent 9.6 sales on eBay. Both were accepted offers. One was listed at $153. The other was listed at $150. On eBay, with an accepted offer, the seller lists a price, a buy it now price, a price they want to sell it for. So let's say $150. And then as a buyer, you can offer less than that. The seller can set up the minimum that they will be accepting an offer for. So let's say you list it for $150, you're not going to sell it for less than $120. So $120, and so if I list it for $150 with a minimum of $120, if you offer $110, it'll just automatically reject it. You can also, as a seller, list a price to automatically accept it. So, like if I said, automatically reject at $120 but accept it at $130, if you offer $132, boom, that's accepted automatically. Otherwise, it becomes a back and forth, a little negotiation. So, usually, an accepted offer isn't a great deal less than the buy it now price, but if it's something that has been sitting around for a while, maybe it is. So it's an unknown factor. So that's number 4 on the list, Babylon 5, number 1. Number 3 on the list is Batman Adventures Annual, number 2, which has had a average sale. So it's this Batman Demon cover. Average CGC sales of $200. There were two sales of $200, one last week and one in September. A recent CBCS 9.8 sales of $90 and $124. So the CBCS going for less than CGC. And this, other than the fact that it's a Batman Adventures annual, I don't know of any other key significance to it. If you do, put that in the chat. So it just seems that these Batman Adventures books are very sought after. Number 2 on the list is Preacher #1. And this is a book that's based on the Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon Vertigo series. It ran for 66 issues. Issue 1 is the first appearance of Jesse Custer, the Preacher. And this was made into a TV show that ran on AMC for 4 seasons from 2016 to 2019. Generally speaking, the 9.8 sell in the $250 to $300 range. The most recent sales in a CGC 9.8 under eBay sold are $285 and $300. Those high sales weren't recent. Those were in 2017. There's nothing greater than that after 2019. So basically, this hit its height during the TV show. And 9.8s really haven't sold much. So Preachers 1, 2, and 3 were all pricey books at one time. I'm not sure that they maintain the same value since the TV show has run its course. And I don't see what is going to help the value of this along in the future. So it's still a sought-after book because people did watch the TV series. I really enjoy the comic book. I haven't watched the TV show yet. It's on my to-do list. But, you know, I don't see anything bumping the price of this book up any further. And then we come to number 1 on our list, and we're back for the 3rd year in a row. A Batman Adventures book is number 1. And this is the Batman Adventures Holiday Special, number 1, with this Mr. Freeze cover. It's the 5th appearance of Harley Quinn, and it won the Harvey Award, which is a comic book industry award for the best single issue of the year in 1995. The most recent sale of a CGC 9.8 was $449 in November. The most recent sale in a CGC 9.8 was $449 in November. The high of $475 back in April. A 9.6 recently sold for $135. So this is a really sought-after book. And for the 3rd year in a row, a Batman Adventures 12, first appearance of Harley Quinn. Batman Adventures Mad Love was the number 1 book of 1994 for DC. And this Batman Adventures Holiday Special is the number 1 book of 1995. This one doesn't involve Harley Quinn, interestingly enough. But it's still the most expensive 9.8 book that DC published in 1995. Let's do a quick top 10 list. Now, or an honorable mention. There's been one sale in September in a CGC 9.8 for $400 of Batman Forever, the official comic adaptation of the Warner Brothers motion picture. That's a mouthful. It's the comic adaptation of the Val Kilmer, the 3rd film in the Batman series. The one Val Kilmer playing Batman, Jim Carrey as Riddler, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, and Nicole Kidman as, was it Vesper Fairchild? Was that the name of it? Whatever, the doctor character, not Aquaman's mom. That's the only sale in a CGC 9.8 I can find of that book, and like raw books are probably, you can get it for under $10. That seemed to be an unusual sale. Batman Adventures 35 and 36, which are the last 2 issues. For number 35, there have been 2 9.8 sales, $150 in March and $72 in May. And for 36, the final issue, the most recent 9.8 sale was $80 in May and a high of $105 last October. Swamp Thing number 153 has sold for an $89 in a 9.8 in July, and a 9.6 in August sold for $115. It's this controversial Brian Boland cover with a swastika on the American flag. The story is an alternative reality where the Nazis won World War II. It's all about the cover. And not necessarily a cover I'd be seeking. Batman Vengeance of Bane 2 a couple of years ago. Batman, The Vengeance of Bane, which was the first appearance of Bane, made the list. This had an accepted offer on a $170 listing in September. Sandman number 69, which is the first appearance of Daniel Hall, who would succeed Morpheus as Sandman as an adult. That's had 3 9.8 sales, $170 in March, $175 in June, and $62 in August. That's a book that the Netflix series could affect the price. Preacher number 2. Surprised that this hasn't sold for as high as Preacher number 3. Preacher number 2 is the first appearance of Arseface. Yeah. The high sale is $200 back in 2018 and a $95 sale this September. Once again, that Preacher series concluded 2 years ago. I don't really see much room to grow on these books. Going to the DC Universe. Now, all the books, including the honorable mentions. Only the Swamp Thing book is kind of tangentially related to the DC Universe. Swamp Thing comes and goes. He was a Vertigo title at the time, and he was technically in the DC Universe, but these are just DC superhero books. The 3 biggest ones that year were Impulse number 1, which is the first of his ongoing series. That had a high 9.8 sale of $50 in May, and a 9.6 sold for $150 in March. That might have been about the time that that we saw Bart Allen. In the comics, he's Flash's grandson. On the CW show, he's Flash's son. That we saw him in the CW series. One of these next generation of heroes that we saw DC producing in the mid-90s. The Nightwing Annual number 1, which is the first solo series for Dick Grayson, has 3 eBay sales in a 9.8, $78, $103, and $175. And since September, there have been a couple of other accepted offers. Interestingly, in 1996, he got his own ongoing series. This was a limited series. The ongoing series has had sales in 9.8. The limited series, not as much. So that's something. And then the other book that made the honorable mention is Green Arrow 101. And because that's the death of Oliver Queen. And then Connor Hawke took over the mantle of Green Arrow after that and was the lead character in that book. So these next generation heroes are the ones that pop most for DC. Now, if you were to look at DC characters speculation-wise, the same as Marvel, well, yeah, the first ongoing series for Nightwing, or the first solo title for Nightwing, the first issue of an ongoing series for Impulse. Those are books that, if these were Marvel characters, would pop because eventually that's how it goes. First appearance, maybe second appearance, first cover appearance, first solo appearance, first ongoing series. Those are kind of the keys that we look for in Marvel characters. So we're talking about Adam Warlock, right? Eventually, you know, there are key status to each of those kinds of books. Now, his is a little more complicated, but even if we look at a character like Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight 5, first appearance. Marvel Spotlight 6, second appearance. Ghost Rider number 1, first appearance in his own book. Those are the keys. So those are something that would be long-term spec for DC. They haven't yet proven the ability to produce a coherent film/TV universe that people are as invested in as they are in Marvel. And for the last 50 years, Marvel's been the market leader in the comic book arena. But perhaps one day DC's day will come. We'll see. I'm actually planning to do a video on the impact of different movies, TV shows, animated series, animated movies for Marvel, DC, and others, and how that affects the market. So let me know what you think of this list. I've been getting some good feedback on people who said they enjoy these top 10 lists. I'm going to keep them coming. So we have 4 more DC 1990s lists to go, and then I think I'm going to transition to Marvel in the 1990s, and then maybe Independence in the 1990s, and then I'm going to choose a different decade. 2000s, 80s, 70s, I'm not sure which, but we'll take a look at that. And guys, please, let's give these videos a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I tend to drop videos on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. No, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think. They're always appreciated. We're past 800 subscribers. I'm trying to put together what I'm going to give away for a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. We're looking forward to that. And until next time, enjoy your comics.